Yeah. There we go. Now we're talking.
Max Scoville here for Rev3 Games, and I'm here to talk to you today about a very special video game, at least for me. It is Deadpool, the video game. The Marvel's Merc with a Mouth finally has his own video game, and I'm very excited about this. He's been my favorite Marvel character since I was a very little boy, and it's cool he's getting his own game. Unfortunately, we have no idea what to expect from this game, so that's why I'm here. Activision's been very quiet about showing it off, and well, here's my review.
See? Once again, our explosive personality wins the day.
If you're unfamiliar with the character, let me get you up to speed. Deadpool's a mercenary, a gun for hire, who's sometimes a hero and sometimes a villain. His superpower is his regenerative healing factor, which essentially means that he can't die. And on top of that, he's got superhuman agility and is an expert with a wide variety of guns, bladed weapons, and martial arts. On top of all that, he's also completely insane. He has multiple personalities with whom he's constantly conversing, and he's fully aware of the fact that he's a character in a comic, or in this case, a video game.
That means you too.
Yeah, duh. It's my game.
Game. This is serious.
Deadpool actually makes a perfect modern video game protagonist. He can pick up any weapon and use it effectively. He's a mercenary, so picking up in-game currency to upgrade weapons makes sense. And he's got a healing factor, so having his health recharge is a no-brainer. On top of that, he knows he's in a video game, so he has no problem addressing and sometimes berating the player with tutorials, explanations, and tips.
Enough with the damn beer. Healing factor won't let me get drunk anyway.
Mechanically, Deadpool, the game, doesn't do anything too crazy. I mean, other than having you kill people with giant hammers. The game is a pretty straightforward beat-em-up with third-person shooting mechanics on the side. The melee combat is fairly satisfying, which is good, since most of the game is spent eviscerating bad guys with combos strung together from heavy and light attacks. Certain enemies require countering, which is done by hitting the B or circle button at the right time. This would be fine if not for the fact that the B or circle button is also used to teleport, which is Deadpool's means of dodging attacks. It can be a bit tedious to be wailing on a few enemies, and then upon trying to counter, winding up away from the action. And it can be downright infuriating during some of the boss fights, which rely on properly timed counterattacks. This problem is exacerbated by the game's camera, which often has a hard time keeping track of the action. The shooting mechanics, meanwhile, don't pack much of a punch. They're competent enough, but none of the game's 4 flavors of firearm are that much fun to shoot. There's sections of the game and specific types of enemies that necessitate them, but Deadpool as a shooter is a lot less fun as Deadpool as a beat-em-up.
Ooh, nasty slide. Should have used the 5-eye.
In terms of gameplay, Deadpool really isn't much to write home about. It feels like a sloppy Devil May Cry knockoff that's fairly rough around the edges. I'm not even going to discuss the visuals because, as you can plainly see, they're not going to win any beauty contests.
What is this cheap prop? Well, this was clearly made by a junior artist.
The campaign isn't too long, maybe 6 to 8 hours, and the levels are as generic as they come, with lots of corridors and arenas and rubble. The only other game mode is a series of challenges that send you back to those same generic levels where you have to kill a designated amount of enemies within an allotted time, which really isn't that exciting.
Next!
The premise of the game is that Deadpool has blackmailed High Moon Studios into making a video game about him, and upon receiving the game's script, he makes a bunch of changes of his own, but then he spends the entire game not entirely sure what's going on because he didn't read the script for his own game.
Hey, what's that?
There's a plot within a plot there involving Mr. Sinister cloning mutants from corpses buried in the ruins of Genosha, but Deadpool's primary objective is getting back at Mr. Sinister for killing off a target that Deadpool was trying to capture alive, so it's sort of like trying to play a normal superhero game, except some idiot keeps talking over all the cutscenes, except in this case, that idiot is the star of the game.
Ah, I love it. It's very French.
Focus. We should get to...
Oh my god, what's that over there?
Deadpool's characterization is the subject of some debate. A lot of fans were disappointed to hear that the game was being written by Daniel Way, whose run on the comic series rubbed a few people the wrong way. I've been behind on the more recent stuff, but as someone who adored the Joe Kelly run and fell in love with Cable and Deadpool, the game sat right with me. I had some misgivings about Nolan North's voice acting early on in the game, but eventually it seemed like he fell into a groove. At certain points, Deadpool almost channels Jim Carrey as the Mask or Ace Ventura, and that works just fine for me.
That's for being in more comics than me. That's for making me love you.
There are plenty of jokes that fall flat, but I found myself laughing out loud numerous times, which isn't something that happens often enough when I'm playing video games. Comedy is all about trial and error, and some jokes will inevitably bomb, as any comedian can tell you. But unfortunately, that's not a philosophy that carries over into AAA game development, where rough edges are filed down over the course of myriad rounds of QA testing. Even with a ton of polish and fine-tuning, Deadpool wouldn't win any awards for revolutionary gameplay, but I'm willing to overlook those shortcomings for the sake of the overall experience.
Deadpool! I know you're around here!
Hey! Oh, it's you.
Deadpool is a video game about Deadpool making a video game, and it feels like a video game that Deadpool would make. It is loud, stupid, violent, juvenile, occasionally downright offensive, and far from perfect, and I can't think of the last time a licensed game from a big publisher, let alone a licensed Marvel Comics game, has made me laugh as hard. Deadpool gets a 3 out of 5. So, Deadpool's far from a perfect game, but I think Activision knows this, and it's actually been knocked down $10 for the console version, and it's only $40 for PC, so if you're curious, you know, go check it out. I had a pretty good time with it, I laughed my ass off, and I really love Deadpool, so it wasn't a huge disappointment to me as a fan. If you'd like to get some recommendations of stuff related to Deadpool, go check out my show Study Hall, where I run down all of my favorite appearances of his, and some great places to start in the comics if you're new to them. If you have any questions for me, let me hear about them in the comments. I'm Max Scoville. Take it easy.